Hello, I'm Bill McCartney, and this is day 2 of the Townsville Challenge, the first event of the National Circuit of Racing for 18-foot skiffs. Yesterday we saw Phil Barnett in Xerox put on a really scintillating performance, cleaned up the opposition in no uncertain terms. Today, another beautiful day, but a little less breeze. Here's the course for today's racing. The first leg running in behind Magnetic Island there. With me again is our expert commentator, Warwick Rooklin. A little bit less breeze today, Warwick, as we approach the start time. What effect will that have? And there they go now. They start now.
And Bank New Zealand has certainly got the best start out of that lot. Xerox is in second, just behind the Bank, probably trying to getting out of that dirty air. Prudential down on the left, and Primo behind. But there it is, Bank and Xerox, the best of the starts. Bank New Zealand starting to climb out on top, and the Bank looks like it's got a bit more pressure, Bill. So there's your answer for the light weather.
Prima drinks immediately, choosing to get out of the bad air coming off the back of these sails. These skiffs leading the race. Bank of New Zealand currently in front. Prima Drinks chose to head out to the right-hand side again. And at this stage, this is a bit of a turnaround, because look at that, he's stretching out of them. Bank of New Zealand doing much better, and also Prudential over on her left doing well. Skilled Engineering at the back of those four struggling.
Yeah, Xerox is struggling for horsepower. Bank, all the guys flat out, the boat screaming through the water. This is the best I've seen them look all year. And Xerox is starting to go out the back door a little bit, I think.
It does appear, Warwick, that the decrease in pressure, less breeze, is not doing Prudential too much harm. Dave Cummins at the helm of Prudential here. They seem to be holding ground quite well there with Bank of New Zealand. We're now about 300 metres up the track, and they're holding ground nicely, but Bank of New Zealand definitely doing best.
Yeah, I don't know about not hurting Prudential. Looking there, the forward hand Dave Slennett was in on the wing, and Chris Harmson was starting to get in too, so maybe the mast isn't holding up, and there's another shot of it. They're struggling for pressure. Bank New Zealand is looking the best, and they're not looking good at all.
These skiffs entirely reliant on the weight of their crew for their balance. If the crews aren't in the right spot, then the skiffs fall down in the water and capsize. We go from Queensland Events over to the other group. Queensland Events currently, I think, struggling. They started right down the bottom end of the course. Andrew Cuddy's got it all to do here today after his excellent race yesterday. Right down the bottom end of the course, and already looking to be well behind Skilled Engineering coming out here also on a starboard tack, and the rest of the fleet.
And Prudential's tacking away there, probably getting a little bit of dirty air. Now the masts in Prudential aren't standing up all that well, and that means that the sails aren't working as well as they could be. And we've got the graphics there. They've got to sail up to the top mark. We can see the boat starting to split tacks. As we remember, they can't sail straight into the breeze. Some are heading right and some are heading left. The Bank New Zealand fully pressured up and going through the water very nicely indeed.
And choosing now to make her tack. Now I can only think that Scott Ramsden has decided that they're in a position to make that top mark, that they can lay that top mark, because every tack they take in these machines, every time they change directions, it costs them about 5 to 10 seconds. So they try to minimise the number of direction changes, and Scott Ramsden, the skipper of Bank of New Zealand, deciding now that he can make that top mark, and if that's right, then he'll certainly lead at that top mark.
Well, he certainly had a good start. He had good speed. The breeze increasing a little as they get further out. And there's another shot of the boys on Skilled Engineering. Phil Reid running in there, starting to go for a tack. Jeremy Hampshire and Andrew DeVolla, the skipper, holding the tiller. Not a good tack from the Skilled.
Getting up towards the top end of the course for the first time now. We indeed have Bank of New Zealand in left of picture. Xerox just down below them. Gap around about 10 to 12 seconds. Here they are coming into picture now. Out to their right and further up ahead of them is Prudential. I think slightly ahead of Xerox at this stage. And I have them Bank of New Zealand first, Prudential in second position, then Xerox, and then Ella Bachet.
Well, in fact, Bill, I think that Ella Bachet is ahead of Xerox, so this is a term for the books. The lightning conditions not helping Xerox one little bit. You can see Phil Barnett there back holding the tiller, that big aluminium thing that controls the rudder, and the boys struggling for pressure, the forward hand having to run in and out, and the conditions very bumpy, but not a lot of wind.
Oh, look at Bank of New Zealand. Scott Ramsden got her absolutely trucking as we watch. She seems to be just romping away from them. Very, very tight between these three for second, third and fourth, however. We in fact have our head cam on board the Bank of New Zealand today, and we'll be crossing to them as we get a little bit further down the track. A much improved performance from Ella Bachet so far today.
Absolutely. They're having a nice windward beat the first time, and certainly the battle between Prudential, Ella Bachet and Xerox may help Bank of New Zealand's progress, because as they battle it out down the back, he can just sail in clear air and do his own job. Prudential tacking and struggling for pressure once again.
Choosing that moment to come back up. So there you see how much time she's going to lose out of that. She's got 2 extra tacks to do. These boys are already at the top mark and off and running, and around they go. Charlie Deepman pointing out to his skipper Scott Ramsden what direction they should take, getting set for a Spinnaker set, and once again a decision as to when to set that Spinnaker will be crucial.
Yes, this leg looks a little bit tight. I don't know whether I'll get Spinnakers on at all. Just looking at Bank of New Zealand, then they're electing to sail, in other words, without a Spinnaker, and they're just trucking down there. So I don't know whether we'll see Spinnakers this time, Bill.
Up at the top mark, Adrienne Cahalan has piloted Ella Bachet around in 3rd position. A tremendous performance for the only female involved in this 18-foot skiff racing, and around in 4th position is Prudential and Warwick. None of them setting Spinnakers. Why can't they set Spinnakers?
Well, the breeze has to be, say, at least 90 degrees from the side of the boat to behind the back of the boat before they can set Spinnakers. Any higher than that, and they cannot sail with those extra sails. And there's a good shot. Adrienne Cahalan having to hang on to Craig Ramsden, their feet interlocked, otherwise these people can get thrown off the boats and lose complete control.
Craig Ramsden, the sheet hand there, moving that big sail in and out. Back at the top mark for the first time, Prina Drinks with the nose just slightly ahead of Skilled Engineering. Those skiffs occupying 6th and 7th positions. In 2nd position is Xerox.
And it looks like Xerox is getting ready to set the Spinnaker. We can see the forward hand in there now. Bank New Zealand has theirs up and is just trucking along in 1st place. Very comfortable indeed. They're coming up, getting closer to the mark now. Going for the jibe now, changing direction, heading off to the bottom mark to complete lap 1. Not a good jibe from the Bank of New Zealand. His head cam on the Bank of New Zealand.
Cameron McDonald cleaning up, now coming back out to give the additional pressure of his weight out the side of the skiff to generate full pressure, travelling now from the wing mark down to the bottom end of the course.
We can just see the hands of Charlie Deepman there, controlling that big sail at the front. And there's Xerox around the wing mark, followed by Ella Bachet just approaching the wing mark, going for the jibe, electing to turn inside of Xerox and hoping to sail across the top of them and actually take Xerox's breeze.
Well and truly out in front. Scott Ramsden got the machine, Bank of New Zealand, going great guns. Prudential back in 4th position and really, really struggling. She doesn't seem to have the pace. They've got the Spinnaker lead slightly eased there, and they are struggling.
Yes, that wasn't a good omen for the Prudential boat. That sail's meant to be right down on the end of the pole, as we can see on Xerox there. But Xerox going well, Ella Bachet going a lot higher, and Bank New Zealand down very low indeed. I don't know whether they're too low or not, but they're sailing very quickly. Xerox is starting to mount a challenge on the bank.
That's the crucial point here, is who has got the right angle to the bottom mark. Xerox is higher up on the course, Bank of New Zealand down lower. If Xerox turns out to be too high on the course, she'll slow right down as that angle starts to tell on her. But a crucial moment coming up here where the skiffs have to drop their Spinnakers, stick them in the bags in the boats there, all that sail area, just hundreds, in fact about 1,000 square feet of it. And that manoeuvre in dropping that Spinnaker is crucial, coming to that point shortly.
They do look low to me, Bill. And we've got to remember the Bank New Zealand and Xerox, and going for the drop now with head cam on the Bank New Zealand.
That's it, guys, come on. We're nearly at the mark.
Encouragement from skipper Scott Ramsden there as Bank gets up towards the bottom mark. And very, very difficult to see just now what's happening here, but Xerox seems to have made up some territory. She's coming down with the Spinnaker still set, having to go fairly deep, however, and now going for the drop, but I do believe Xerox has made up some ground.
Yeah, they certainly have. Xerox planned that manoeuvre a little bit better than the Bank, but no major problems yet for the Bank. They've still got a comfortable lead over Xerox.
Around the bottom mark they are now. They've rounded the bottom mark with Xerox still struggling to get up to the Bank of New Zealand, and current positions as you see them on the screen. Ella Bachet having an excellent race ahead of Prudential at this stage, and once again Queensland events, Andrew Cuddy has that skiff snapping at the heels of the leaders.
Back on board with head cam again.
Okay, go and get it, Charlie, quick.
Charlie Deepman going in to do some tidying up, maybe make an adjustment.
Oh yeah, let's get into it now. Cano on. That's enough. That's enough.
Adjusting the sails, a little bit more pressure, the breeze is lightening off.
And that work being undertaken constantly battling with the gear to keep things in trim on board these machines, and then of course having to transfer their weight out onto the wings to keep the pressure up. Ella Bachet currently back there in third position, doing extremely well. Adrienne Carlin has looked as though she's had pace all season, and maybe now she's going to put a big one on the board. In second position is Xerox. She's tacked and moved out to the right-hand side of the course. Going out to the left-hand side, up the top end, left-hand side of the picture is Bank of New Zealand still leading.
Xerox lacking pressure, unable to catch the Bank of New Zealand. Ella Bachet is moving through the water nicely. That boat is completely powered up and moving very well indeed.
Yes, Adrienne Carlin doing very well here. Craig Ramsden, the sheet hand on board, is responsible for getting this machine going fast. It is going very fast, but I would say also, Warwick, that the skiff is sailing a little bit low, not able to get quite as high to the wind as they would like, and that is holding them back just a little bit. They're struggling to hang on to the Bank of New Zealand. Bank of New Zealand getting away.
Yes, it's the best we've seen of them up here in Townsville, but the Bank of New Zealand is still ahead and moving very nicely. Back with head cam on the Bank of New Zealand now.
Okay, go past him. Go past him.
Seems they have an obstacle up ahead. Scott Ramsden speaking to his crew.
Just having to get round a spectator boat there, Bill.
Right.
Through the tack, changing directions. Just going through the tack, which means that they can lay the mark, and it looks like Adrienne Carlin's decided that she too can lay the mark. Craig Ramsden nearly dripping over there. It must be really tricky in these big seas.
Well, it is, and also they've got to run about 18 feet across these boats. They're moving around all the time. It's very slippery. There's water there, and they've got to keep these boats upright while they do it.
Getting up now towards the top end of the course, and Adrienne Carlin quite well positioned. As I said earlier, suffering through lack of height, not able to quite get that skiff sailing as high to the wind as they would like, and they've got pace but can't seem to get the height they want. On the course, she's currently in behind Bank of New Zealand, marked in blue. Bank of New Zealand in blue will make the top mark on the port hand. Ella Bachet still has 2 tacks to do, so there's another 20 seconds in her race time, and that means Bank of New Zealand is still a clear leader.
The waves are building up, but the breeze is still dropping more, I believe. But the Bank, carrying less crew weight than Prudential or Xerox, is suffering the least amount from her other competitors.
Bank of New Zealand, and look at that, she has stretched the gap. Those skiffs coming in from way out there on the right, they might have starboard tack, and it may be that Bank of New Zealand would have to give way to them, but they're nowhere near close enough to threaten them. And the team on board Bank of New Zealand, Scott Ramsden, Charlie Diekman and Cameron McDonald, looking very, very relaxed. The skiff looking very powered up.
Yes, they're comfortable. The boat's upright. You can see Scott holding that big aluminium tiller, pumping the boat through the waves so it doesn't pound, so it doesn't slow down, just coaxing it along.
We actually just had a glimpse there of Xerox coming back on the starboard tack with the breeze coming over her right-hand side, so she's completed her leg out to the right. She's now changed direction, heading back towards Bank of New Zealand. Here she comes now. She's got the breeze coming over her right-hand side, so and they look very powered up just there. They look good, so maybe they have managed to make up some ground. They were second, and when these two skiffs cross in a moment, we're going to find out where the race is at.
We'll be able to see exactly where they are in a moment as we come up with the graphics. Xerox is converging on the Bank of New Zealand. We can see them there, and Xerox has caught up an enormous amount. They must have got a favourable wind shift out there on the right and sailed better than the Bank of New Zealand up that last part of the beat. The Bank doing everything they can to hold on to their lead. The Bank of New Zealand let Xerox get away. They should have covered the Xerox. It was silly to let them go away because they could sail into a shift that the Bank doesn't get.
And looking at that, that looks very tight indeed. At the top end, Xerox in white coming in on starboard tack with right of way. Oh, and now they're losing pressure. They've got someone inboard. That's what they didn't need. Just 30 seconds ago, they had plenty of pressure. Bank of New Zealand still carrying pressure. I think the day has been saved for them.
Yeah, absolutely. They were very lucky there. The Xerox was looking very good, and as you said, they went into a hole and they lost pressure and speed. But the Bank is crossed comfortably, but still not that far ahead. One little mistake from the crew, Charlie Diekman or Cameron McDonald, and the boys on Xerox will be back.
So changing directions now is Xerox, heading up towards the top mark. Already around in first position is Bank of New Zealand. Scott Ramsden doing an excellent job today and turning the tables, and we're back on board.
Okay, good going, guys.
Scotty Ramsden just congratulating his crew, keeping them nice and cool and calm. They don't need any major mistakes. Xerox pumping it up.
Yep.
Having to move down the back of the boat was starting to nosedive.
She's really flying down here, guys. It's going well.
And Scott Ramsden giving his crew plenty of encouragement there for the job well done. Xerox in second position, and once again we're back to this point where we have to try and decide, or the crews have to decide, when to set the Spinnaker. They're going across from the top mark to the wing mark. At some point they will set their Spinnakers, it's a question of when.
And certainly the job for the bank is harder than the boats behind. Ella Bachet starting to head up to the top mark. You can see the forward hand in Xerox there, just starting to open the bag up for the Spinnaker set. They'll be watching, they'll be discussing the tactics, when to set it. It's a crucial time in this race. If Xerox can set it at the right time and the Bank New Zealand doesn't, they could close the gap drastically.
And around the top mark in third position, Ella Bachet, Adrian Carlin continuing her excellent run in this, the second heat of the Townsville Challenge. Way out to the left, Bank of New Zealand look to me like they're going for the Spinnaker, and indeed in go the crew on board Xerox in second position, right down below us here. Going for the Spinnaker, and Spinnaker sets everything in this sort of racing. The faster you get it done, the better you go.
Little wrap on the Xerox, that's not going to help them.
Okay.
Prudential's still two sailing. Bank New Zealand have got their Spinnaker set, and they're going well. No such problems there. They're starting this race very calmly indeed, and that's good news for the Bank of New Zealand.
Coming down now towards the end of this race, and indeed we see Bank of New Zealand has rounded the wing mark for the final time, heading down towards the bottom end of the course. Xerox fully powered up. There's the wing mark, just going past it. In goes the crew, Dave Ewings and Dave Gibson. Across they go. A crucial moment in all 18-foot skiff racing is the jibe, and that's a beautiful effort from Xerox.
It's about as good as it gets, Bill. Those guys came very close to the mark indeed. They're trying very hard. They haven't given up yet. And that jibe was superb. They've trained very hard and very long to do that. And this boat, even though the breeze has died out and things haven't really suited them as far as the course goes, they've sailed well. But skilled engineering, coming around the top mark, so that shows the difference. Easing sheets, they've got to ease that big mainsail out, the back there. Phil Reed in there, getting prepared. Jib eased a little bit. And there's Prima really hurting in the light breeze. The boat going up and down, crashing in the waves and going nowhere.
The breeze has been lightening out just a little bit at a time as this race has gone on. A Bank of New Zealand in blue now getting down towards the bottom mark for the last time to head over to the finish line. Right behind her is Xerox, but Xerox now needs a mistake from Scott Ramsden or one of his crew members to be able to get up to them. And here's the opportune moment. It's at these Spinnaker drops that mistakes can get made, and this is probably Xerox's last chance.
And the Bank's windward wing, the right-hand wing, fell into the water there when the pressure out of that Spinnaker came out. The guys are gathering it up. They'll be working very hard. They've got to put it into a big bag there on the deck, stow it away so it can't be dragged off the boat. Two guys out the end of the wing just starting to pull the sheets on as they go up for the final reach, the final little leg to the finishing line. And I don't think there's any stopping the Bank New Zealand now. It's been a fine race and a good effort from Scott Ramsden, Charlie Diekman and Cameron McDonald.
If anything, it appears to me that Bank of New Zealand in the last 5 or so minutes of this race have opened right up on Xerox, which is such a surprise when you consider that Xerox was like a rocket yesterday. She absolutely burnt them off. In fact, was 10% faster around the course than Bank of New Zealand second. Here we have slightly less wind, and look at the difference. Bank of New Zealand now coming up to the finish line and coming up to an excellent victory, and through she goes now. That's the finish for Bank of New Zealand, and she takes out the second heat of the Townsville Challenge, and she's back in contention.
And Xerox showing a slight weakness there in the lightning breeze, and there's a big disappointment there. There's Prudential. Rob Brown will be watching this and be going, what have I got to do to catch back up this speed?
The final results of race 2 of the Townsville Challenge, and the big disappointment there is Prudential in 4th, and they'll be worried people. Also, Skilled Engineering and Prima Drinks are struggling a bit at the moment, as the progress points tallies now show. Bank of New Zealand going extremely well now, very, very tight in second position, and their skipper Scott Ramsden is a happy young man.
A big result today. How did you go?
Oh, we were very, very pleased with our racing. The second race, we ballsed up a little bit in the first race when we went off by ourselves, but in practice that seemed to be the way to go. Didn't pay off, but the conditions are good and the boat loves it, and the crew's performing fantastic, and can't better watch out for tomorrow, I think.
That performance by young Scott Ramsden was just exactly what the bank manager ordered. Scott had a diabolical season last summer. He couldn't get any pace out of the bank. He had a terrible time on the water. This performance will restore his confidence, and you can rely on him now being right at the top of the fleet for the rest of this series. We're back in Townsville tomorrow for race 3, and we'll see what the rest of them can do about picking up Bank of New Zealand and Xerox.